Hello.
So today we are going to be doing a book haul of a few things that I've just recently picked up from my perusing at a local thrift store. So I have some varied authors and genres and topics in this collection that we'll be going over today, and I'm super excited to share that one with you. So that'll kind of be my very first book haul. Go easy on me. And yeah, some of these books, of course, I've never read them. Well, actually, some of them I have, or one of them I have. And yeah, one of them I have read, and we'll kind of go into a little bit of detail about that. But the rest of them have not been read, so that's why it's a book haul. And we'll kind of go over what they are, and I'll read a few inserts and a couple pages into it and just kind of like, discover what they are as well. Okay, so, the first book. Oh, I have two common books here that are on tough, gruesome topics. So maybe we should start on a happier note, I suppose. That one's not too happy, is it? Oh, why are things so tragic? Alright, you know what? Oh, I don't even want to start with that. People are going to click off. Oh, this author, he's not a real author. Okay, we'll start with that because it's in there and it will be done eventually. Nicholas Sparks, guilty pleasure reading, rom-com king, depressing author dude from North Carolina. Yeah, so Nicholas Sparks, I have A Bend in the Road. I actually have never heard of this title. I'm super familiar with Nicholas Sparks, of course, just like most people are. A lot of his movies have earned millions of dollars, and they are romantic comedies that usually deal with a guy and a girl, boy meets girl kind of situation, girl meets boy. And they're usually in the setting of North Carolina, seaside towns where there's a military aspect and I don't want to say abusive because I'm only thinking of one story, but there's usually a tragedy that happens in his stories, and yeah, I just kind of feel like this is something that I want. His work is something that I really just want to gobble up because they're just fun, easy books to read. And I know a lot of people may not consider him as a great, of course, and I by no means do. But this one is called A Bend in the Road. I have seen a million of his films, just like as I said, most people have. The Notebook, Dear John, The Last Song, The Best of Me. I started The Choice, haven't finished that. I'm trying to think of others. Thinking of this scene, we're through.
Hey man, God, no wonder you've been keeping her locked up, man. I had no idea this was underneath all that.
Dean, stop it!
You stay out of this! We're through. It's great. We are through. We are through forever!
Of A Walk to Remember. Anyway, so yeah, he has a lot of books that coincide with a lot of motion pictures that have been quite successful and I feel like cherished by a lot of folks. So this one is called A Bend in the Road, and we're just gonna find out here what this is about. Yeah. That's awful. Oh no! Oh my god. Oh my gosh. So you guys, I'm reading The Dust Jacket and I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, one of America's most prominent storytellers, and I'm reading, I'm trying to find where's the Nicholas Sparks, I want to call him Spark. Nicholas Sparks touch. And it says here, recently selected as the best author by readers of Entertainment Weekly, Nicholas Sparks is one of America's preeminent storytellers. Now, Sparks spins a tale about a man, a woman, and a devastating secret that threatens to keep them apart. Ooh, A Bend in the Road. Okay, so Miles Ryan's life seems to end the day his wife was killed in a hit and run accident 2 years ago. Missy had been his first love, and Miles fervently believes she will be his last. It just already is so heartbreaking. The part that got my eyes looking like, what? Was the hit and run. I'm like, Jesus. So, basically, it looks like, of course, this is a real town in North Carolina, New Bern. He is grieving for his wife, as he should be, but he wants to basically bring the driver, the unknown assailant, to justice. Hit and run. So, this reminds me of almost the time that I thought somebody hit and ran my car. Oh my God, that's a different story for a different time. So basically, he meets this person named Sarah Andrews, and she's the second grade teacher for his son, Jonah. So Sarah had left Baltimore, psycho murder capital of the world, after a difficult divorce to start over in the gentler surroundings of New Bern. And New Bern, I have actually looked at some property there. Classic southern country feeling, truly. It's beautiful. It's very swampy. If you could recall the scene in The Notebook where Noah. Yeah, no, I have to get into the character. Oh my gosh, I'm getting my kicks with this. But yeah, Noah, when Noah and Allie, I think that's her name, are in the canoe. Oh my gosh, this guy just repeats everything. I'm thinking of now Josh Duhamel and Juliana something.
Talk.
Yeah, there's the same clip. It's the same clip. It's the same scene. Anyway, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams' character in The Notebook, they have like a little beautiful canoe scene where I think a lot of geese and swan, I'm not quite sure what the bird was, were floating around in the bayou kind of area, and you have a bunch of like beautiful old, just glorious willow trees that are like really that are for that area. I don't know what the term would be. That would be for that are found for that area. Those kind of like mossy willow type of trees that are, you know, predominantly in they belong to that kind of like area, that region. So yeah, Noah and Allie are just canoeing, just as Josh Duhamel and Juliana McHolan, I don't know, something. I think it's a McDonough, Magoo. Anyway, yeah, it's so funny how they have the same kind of clip. So, what was my point again? Yeah, I guess I was saying that this lady, she left Baltimore to go to gentler surroundings of New Bern, and I was just thinking of how beautiful the South can be sometimes. Anyway, so she is she basically sees Jonah, which is the kid, his eyes, and then his father's eyes, and of course they're gonna reach out to each other and start loving each other, and soon they're both laughing for the first time in years and falling in love. And it's just, they're always so good. I think I've read, if I'm not mistaken, just 2 Nicholas Sparks books, because I was so excited for the movies to come out, because they were like actors that I was like, oh, I'm kind of familiar with some of their work. So like I read Dear John, and I've also read The Last Song, and I really enjoyed them both. The one that I preferred movie and book wise was Dear John the most. It has a more of an older feel. It's not as immature, you know. So yeah, those are awesome, and that was a very lengthy beginning, but A Bend in the Road is one of the books I picked up. Okay, so my next book is one that I did pick up recently, but I have read it maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, and it is The Night of the Long Knives, 48 Hours That Changed the History of the World by Paul Marison. And this particular book, it is dealing with the absolute calamity of the Third Reich. Basically, it kind of like showcases the beginning of Hitler and his cronies, and how they pretty much took down the German state. They burned down what was it? They burned down Germany's parliament and just kind of like did a coup in a sense, and it really just shows the effect of propaganda, the subterfuge and trickery that has happened basically by this failed loser artist, okay? And he is not to be really, underestimated, because it's like you can see the after effects of all the Jews and other folks, gypsies, Catholics, Germans, and a milieu of people that, were killed during his reign. So basically, the Night of the Long Knives, it really just kind of showcases the just like these critical times where they're overthrowing the German government, and it was so well written. I remember how I felt like I was like a fly on the wall. This is the only book in my collection for today that I have read. I remember when reading this that I was like, I felt like such a fly on the wall for some of these meetings and phone calls and letters that were being like sent back and forth between these high-ranking officials under the Third Reich. It just kind of shows you their mechanics of thinking and things like that. So towards the end, it was very, very bloody, very sloppy, very distressing, because a lot of them it felt very rapid in the way that it closed, which it did, the Second World War. Towards the end of this, so many cowardly officials were just taking, what is it called? Cyanide. And that was kind of the very cowardly and way to go for a lot of these SS soldiers. Yeah, so towards the end of the book, things were rapidly just happening. A lot of things were in motion, and you could just feel the stress and the close of their reign a little bit. There was firing squad moments in here, and they were pledging their allegiance to Hitler, and they just basically were desperate to live, even though they were merciless and ruthless to others. But yeah, so this is what it is, The Night of the Long Knives. It was such a great read, and I really wanted to dive into this again. I terribly enjoy nonfiction works as well, and when it has to do with the real world, it's super meaningful, and it's super impactful, reading this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's one of the other books that I have. I'm drinking out of my Superman mug here after speaking about those folks that this character actually really fights off in a lot of the early comics. So yeah, really unsettling, like just unsettling things, as we all know. I'm gonna keep up with the same theme just to kind of get this one out of the way as well. But I have this book with by Erik Larson, and it is In the Garden of the Beast: Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin. Now, Erik Larson is the one who wrote The Devil in the White City, and that has to kind of like do with, I believe, a gangster-ish type of New York-y, Chicagoan story about crime and whatnot. So I believe that's what it is. I could be completely off, but I know that Erik Larson is the author for that. Now this specific book, I want to quickly read off the dust jacket so we can get that down. So, Erik Larson has been widely acclaimed as a master of narrative nonfiction, and in his new book, the best-selling author of The Devil in the White City turns his hand to a remarkable story set during Hitler's rise to power. The time is 1933, the place Berlin, when William E. Dodd becomes America's first ambassador to Hitler's Germany in a year that proved to be a turning point in history. A mild-mannered, look at that, I was just talking about, like, kind of the mild-mannered guy, which is Superman. So, a mild-mannered professor from Chicago, Dodd brings along his wife, son, and flamboyant daughter, Martha. At first, Martha is entranced by the parties and pomp and the handsome young men of the Third Reich with their infectious enthusiasm for restoring Germany to a position of world prominence. Enamored of the new Germany, she has one affair after another, including with the surprisingly honorable first chief of the Gestapo, Rudolf Diels, maybe? Diels. But as evidence of Jewish persecution mounts, confirmed by chilling first person testimony, her father telegraphs his concerns to a largely indifferent State Department back home. Yeah, so Dodd watches with alarm as Jews are attacked, the press is censored, and drafts of frightening new laws begin to circulate. As that first year unfolds and the shadows deepen, the Dodds experience days full of excitement, intrigue, romance, and ultimately horror when a climactic spasm of violence and murder unmasks Hitler's true character and ruthless ambition. Suffused with the tense atmosphere of the period and with unforgettable portraits of the bizarre Göring, that's one of his SS officers, high ranking, Hermann Göring, and the expectedly charming yet wholly sinister Goebbels, another one. In The Garden of Beasts, this book lends a stunning eyewitness perspective on events as they unfold in real time, revealing an era of surprising nuance and complexity. The result is a dazzling, addictively readable work that speaks volumes about why the world did not recognize the grave threat posed by Hitler until Berlin and Europe were awash in blood and terror. Yeah, a little too late in the reaction, which is just so unfortunate. So yeah, I absolutely enjoy works like this, as I said, so I picked this book up as well, and it was quite inexpensive from the thrift store. Okay, so moving right along to our fourth book of the haul, we have The Good Son, JFK Jr. and the Mother He Loved. So this book is really about the relationship between Jacqueline Kennedy. At first, I think I honestly first knew that name as Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. I was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, she remarried. Like, so yeah, I honestly knew Jackie O first before Jackie Kennedy, which is just so crazy to me. But yes, so yeah, this is really a story about Jackie Kennedy and her son Jack Jr., John F. Kennedy Jr., and how she plays such a role into shaping him into the man that he was, later on in the 90s. Of course, JFK was assassinated in 1963 on the 22nd of November, and Jackie was left as a single mother to Carolyn and her son Jack Jr. And basically, this story is just about more details into their lives, and yeah, so the story just basically explores the maternal connection that Jackie Kennedy and Jack Jr. shared during their times after her husband's death, and what that really was like. It looks like it's really a gripping story and more details that are provided, and there are also a few pictures in here as well. So that's that book. Okay, I have a few more books. Let's see what else. I'm gonna pick up this one here. Alrighty, so we have a Stephen King book. So this one is The Dark Tower 5. I didn't realize, Wolves of the Kala. I didn't realize that I picked up a series. I wasn't trying to do that, but I happened to do that. So there are a few books before this. So in the Stephen King fantasy, epic almost, it looks like basically it's kind of like a gunslinging adventure type of book that I really don't know much about, because this is again the 5th installment, so there's not much that I can say about that. But I did pick this Stephen King book up, and I didn't realize that King kind of did those kind of fantasy stories, so I'm kind of getting very, I'm not saying that there are dragons in here or anything like that, but I am kind of getting that fantasy world environment from this thing. These folks are heading towards this tower, and I'm not quite sure that I'll leave it at that, really, because I haven't, read the first few books, so yeah. Alrighty, so the next book that I do have is a Penguin Classics Black Spine. It's Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. So basically, a group of pilgrims are trekking and making the voyage to this cathedral, Canterbury Cathedral, where they are going to be competing and telling their stories. And it's kind of like just a range of different experiences, from nuns to knights to pilgrims to, et cetera, et cetera. All folks that you can imagine are living in the medieval England time. So that's the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. And I know that Geoffrey Chaucer definitely did do A Knight's Tale or The Knight's Tale. It's been years since I've seen that film. And I know that's, another piece of writing from him. And that one is, I terribly enjoyed that one when I did end up watching it, and that actually has Heath Ledger in it. So that's the Canterbury Tales. Okay, so in the spirit of Christmas, I did pick up this really gorgeous book called The Legend of Holly Claus by Brittany Ryan, and there are some illustrations in here by Laurel Long. I honestly picked it up not only because of its gorgeous, sweet Josephine Walls-esque kind of cover, and I will try to pop up a picture because maybe the camera might be a little too far, so see if I could pop up a picture right here so you can get a good look at that. Yeah, so I honestly did pick up this book because it had a stamp that said the Julie Andrews collection. So just as Oprah has her book club, and Reese Witherspoon also has her little book club too. You see that kind of if you ever go to thrift stores and are looking through, perusing through the stacks of books, you will see those kind of stamps on there, which it can be helpful because sometimes those are very entertaining type of books. They're not really your classics or more serious books, but they can be like, oh, that's a good read. Not saying that, you need anybody's stamp of approval to read anything. But yeah, this one is about Santa Claus, who seems to be the king of forever, land of the immortals. Basically, this special kid, this boy, he writes to Santa asking what no other child has ever asked, what he wants for Christmas. And of course it's going to be some type of miracle. So Santa and Mrs. Claus, his wife, they're blessed with a daughter, and I believe that would be Holly. She's like over here writing she looks like she's riding an animal, but she's actually not. She's in a sleigh, her own sleigh. I wonder who's actually dragging her through the air. She borrowed her daddy's reindeers. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like, yeah, they're blessed with a daughter, and her name is Holly Claus, and, but that somehow brings about this terrible curse, so there goes your issue in the story, and that seems so, it just seems really adventurous and riveting, and just, it seems very whimsical and magical as well, just by the cover alone. If you know the Josephine Walls collection, she has some very mystical, nymph-like type of paintings and art that is just really like spellbounding, I think that's the word. But yeah, so so there's a terrible curse that is brought about when Holly Claus is born, and it's basically this curse is brought about by this guy named Hercon. Ooh. So Holly's heart is frozen, and the gates to forever, which is the place Santa Claus is king of, they are locked and barring exit or entry, so no coming and going. Yeah, so now that she has grown into this beautiful and young, selfless woman, Holly becomes consumed with the desire to break the spell that holds her people hostage. She's accompanied by 4 faithful and magical animal friends, and she escapes to the wondrous world of Victorian New York. I didn't even know that this would be set in that time period, and she's basically embarking on a series of dangerous and, of course, life-threatening and life-changing adventures. So that sounds like a lot of fun, and honestly, that'll probably be a December read for this year. Yeah, so, this is YA middle grade, and it looks really charming and just fanciful and exquisite, yeah, it looks like my brain is going to be firing and I'm just going to be immersed in their little forever land in Victorian New York. So that'll be fun and exciting. So that is The Legend of Holly Claus, and it was a Julie Andrews collection, which is really why I picked it, because she has not steered me wrong, especially in her most famous. I wouldn't say that's her most famous role. That's her most famous role for me, The Sound of Music, which is just, if you haven't seen it, seriously, The Sound of Music is a classic. It has beautiful music and a fantastic story. And again, it surrounds Third Reich-ish Germany. It's just, they're everywhere. Gosh. But yeah, that's Holly Claus. Okay, so our next book is Pride and Prejudice by Miss Jane Austen, who has so many famous works. Obviously, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park, and of course, so many things. Persuasion, and a bunch of other titles that I do know. I am going to be honest with you, I don't really know what this is about, except for that there's somebody named Mr. Darcy and Liz, or Elizabeth, I guess, and I suppose they're the ones who are in love. I don't know, but I intend to find out, and I'm very excited to finally read one of Jane Austen's works. This is the Dalmatian Press Classics unabridged version, and it's kind of cute actually, because it has like this illustration in the front, and it almost seems childlike, but no, this is just a different kind of edition. I was a little weary of picking it up because of that kind of cover, but it's absolutely like any other cover that is more serious, if you would think of it that way. So yeah, I do know that this is set in the 1800s, the 18th century, and England, and that there's probably forbidden love and romance that happens. The most that I know about this is that Keira Knightley stars in that 2005 version. There's a possibility that Colin Firth might have been in another older or newer version. I'm not quite sure. And there's this beautiful epic song that I've had for years from the 2005 version, and it's called Liz on Top of the World. It's just this beautiful, soft piano that just starts so quietly and so preciously, and it just kind of swells into this field of, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels like you should be running into a field as the song is just getting so climactic and louder and just beautiful. And it's just that's just a song you should go look it up. Liz on Top of the World, and it really does kind of make you feel like I'm on top of the world a little bit. The way that it ends, it's so darn short, but it's really beautiful. So that's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and I'm so excited to read this one as well. So I picked this up thrift store again. Next book, I've lost count of how many. I think this is our 10th book, I'm sure. So this one is called The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. And it is a this little novel here that seems that there's a little bit of intrigue, and I just want to read the little back to you. These are books that I have no clue about, but they just seem so they seemed interesting and they intrigued me in the store, and I just picked them up because it looks like something I would be into. So it says, "Don't overstay your welcome." Ooh. So in Littleport, Maine, there's this kind of vacation enclave for the wealthy. Those are folks who enjoy their summer homes here. It kind of gives me Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard vibes, where the residents who do reside there. I hate that. Residents who reside. The residents who are there really depend on the income from the tourists who are coming into the summer. And I'm sure there's, that whole lobster clam bakey feel. Again, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket kind of essence to it in Maine. So basically, it looks like this is a story that takes place in the summer, and unfortunately, I don't want to say murder, suicide happens. So I'm just going to read this little section here, and that'll be that. Typically, fierce friendships never develop between a local and a summer girl. But that's just what happens with visitor Sadie Lohman and Littleport resident Avery Greer. The girls are inseparable until Sadie is found dead. So Sadie is the visitor, and she's the one who's found dead. It's that time of the year where people are gonna, finish up their stash. Yeah, their stash of fireworks. So apologies if you do hear some little sounds in the background. I absolutely hate the sound of fireworks. It's so startling, and I can only imagine what the little creatures out there are feeling, like the squirrels. Freaking out! Okay, so we have Sadie who's visiting and Avery who's actually a Littleport resident. So the girls are inseparable until Sadie is found dead. While the police ruled the death a suicide, Avery, the resident, can't help but feel there are those in the community, including members of Sadie's family, who blame her. Someone knows more than they're saying, and Avery is intent on clearing her name before the facts get twisted against her. So, kind of like a thriller kind of novel. So that will be very fun and absolutely like twisty, So the next book that I do have here is Live My Night, The American Dream Has a Price by Dennis Lehane. I would say that's how you say it. So basically this setting, this book is set in Boston during the Prohibition era, the Roaring 20s. So Prohibition is, in full force, and folks are dealing with that kind of, those illegal speakeasies, the distilleries and underground type of underground dealings and whatnot. So this is really just like a gangster, corrupt cop, again, gunslinging type of book that has to deal with pretty much mobsters and the like. I do know that this is like a 2016 film where Ben Affleck stars, and he also directs. He is a director, which is pretty cool. And I enjoyed it. I would have to rewatch it to have even more of my faculties. I like rewatching things, as most people do, just so that way you're absorbing and really grasping and learning more of what you've seen. Because sure, you're an adult and you may have just seen this recently, but you can always learn and catch something that you didn't from your first viewing. So yeah, this is a kind of gangster, prohibition, mobster, Gatsby, I would like to say Gatsby era-ish kind of book, and excited to read it because I am familiar with the film and I've seen it like a couple of times. So Ben Affleck stars and directs, and of course there are a slew of other characters in his movie, and I'm super excited to get to that. And again, fireworks are going on. Okay, the final and 12th book that I do have is called The Fallen. And this is the third book in the series. I am so happy that I found this book because for years I've just had the first two books by this author, Thomas Sniegoski. I'm not quite sure. I'm so silly. I was like reading the back, and I was like, ugh. Hello, Tanya.
Hello, Megan.
So this is kind of like, I'm like, if you couldn't tell by the title, Fallen, and this dude who's who has these huge angel wings on his back, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a story about, heaven and hell, of course, but it has to do with Lucifer's son and that kind of aspect. I'm going to read the back again because I really am not 100% sure what this book entails. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now. So, victory is fleeting, but defeat is eternal. The war between heaven and hell rages on. Aaron, half angel and half human, commands the fallen in their quest to protect humanity. But evil forces gain strength at every turn, and lurking somewhere in the shadows is Archangel Gabriel's instrument with the power to call down the end of days. Aaron draws confidence from the girl he loves as he struggles to make peace with his legacy as Lucifer's son. Ugh. These are desperate times, and Aaron knows the fallen will need to forge new, unlikely alliances to survive. So that sounds like a fun kind of story. And again, that's another series. I'm not really into series all that much, but if it seems, compelling enough, I will totally grab that. And look at that. Even that Stephen King book, I've kind of wrapped myself into a series unknowingly. So, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance, Aaron will stop at nothing to defend civilization and the girl who holds his heart, even if it means facing hell's darkest demons. So yeah, that's the final book in this this little book haul. There will be more to come because I have quite a few books that need to be presented to you guys before they're kind of sorted back into my bookshelves. So the cheese factor, I'm sure, is going to be high with this one, and it's another one that I'm super excited to read. So yeah, super intrigued and happy to get this in my collection. There are actually 4 in the series, and yeah, the first one seems to be called The Fallen and Leviathan. Second one is The Fallen, Airy and Reckoning. This one is the third one, End of Days. And then the final one, ooh, how mysterious. There's no name. It just says The Fallen and it has a big old number 4 on there. So yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much, yeah, for sitting here and listening to me ramble on about some of these really exciting and fun books that I will, of course, read in the future. I hope you enjoyed the book haul, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.
At night you long for days, your hands still there.